I keep thinking about doing this, and I've decided that I'm probably actually finally going to do it. So I am going to do a little Inked Anarchist history, laying that on you. Let's go. A couple of days ago was the anniversary of the founding of the Federal Reserve in the United States. And, I decided, it would be fun. Let's talk about the history of the Federal Reserve. So that's what I'm going to do. So the origin of the true founding of the Federal Reserve really begins at exactly 5:12 a.m. on April 18th, 1906. You might remember that. That's the moment that a massive earthquake almost leveled San Francisco. And what happens is ultimately it drives, over the course of the next year, an economic depression, run on banks, and pretty soon the banks fail because, well, they've been loaning everyone's money out like crazy and haven't really cared very much about their own liquidity. What's that, Gino? No, that's just the peasants' money. Who cares? And it's important to note that this isn't the first panic that made the general banking system in the U.S. implode spectacularly. There had been a panic of 1819 and 1837, 1857, 1873, 1884, 1890, 1893, 1896, and 1901. Now that I think about it, the 19th century wasn't really panicking so much at the disco as at the teller line. But we'll talk about some of that in another video. What you need to know is that the banks kept doing very obviously dumb shit and then failing when people noticed that their money was a house of cards. There was no central banking authority. There were only two federally chartered banks, and a lot of the banks were authorized by the states, who at the time could authorize money, to print their own money, backed on that bank's own actual money reserves, which we like to call gold. What's actually interesting about that is that's still around. You can find some of it. I used to have some from right around the Civil War. Confederacy actually did the same thing, but they were way worse about it. This lack of centralization probably has something to do with America being literally founded by a bunch of armed men who decided the best thing to do with a centralized authority was shoot it in the face with a cannon. I mean, seriously, Andrew Jackson, the absolutely monumental racist and practically genocidal asshat that he was, opposed the idea of central banking so much, he got into a duel. Banks keep failing every few years, and all these bankers would wound up losing so much money that they'd, have to move into the suburbs, like a peasant. I say, Jeeves, must we move into the area of the commoners? How awful. Rumph. Jeeves, I shall require more sherry. So, what to do? Well, if you're one of the most powerful bankers in the nation, you get a sudden call for a secret, literally locked door meeting with J.P. Morgan. Now, you'll probably recognize his name if you're familiar with Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison, or, remember the year 2008. And when I say locked door meeting, I really mean it. The man literally had his servants lock the doors of his library from the outside and refused to have them unlocked until they all signed his agreement. And what was this agreement? Well, it said that they pledged $25 million to go into a centralized fund governed by a central authority that would then take that and use that to bail out any bank that was failing. They had to pledge that. J.P. Morgan was the centralized authority. You can see why maybe he needed to lock the doors. Well, so you fast forward a few years, and dear old Jimmy P is getting up there in years. Like 70, in the early 20th century. World-altering wealth has its benefits. Like your soul. But all the bankers in the country started to realize that perhaps Morgy Baby over there wouldn't be able to suck enough hopes and dreams out of the collective orphans of the world to keep going forever and saving the day for them. Enter onto the scene mustache aficionado, the connoisseur of the harumph, head of the Senate Finance Committee, Nelson W. Aldrich. Aldrich is a titan of politics in the late 19th century. This guy is known as one of the Big Four. That is in quotes with capitals. I kid you not. Google it. He was referred to in the press as the general manager of the nation. Again, direct quote. And it should be noted, this guy had only spent a single term as a member of the House of Representatives after a meteoric rise to prominence as the tycoon of a grocery empire before he landed in the Senate. And, you know, that definitely sounds like somebody who's absolutely and completely on the up and up. So one day, Aldrich is talking to his Wall Street buddies, and they go, "Listen, Nellie, baby, we gotta talk. See, we keep having these runs on our banks, right? Because the peasants, they think that they actually get to just take their own money whenever they want. I mean, that's pretty crazy, right? Silly peasants. But so it leaves us two choices there, Nelly boy. We either need the government to do something to make other people pay for us to keep being reckless assholes, or we're going to need to start behaving ourselves with other people's money." So Aldrich goes, oh, I know. What we need is a central banking authority that can give banks money from the taxpayers to keep them from failing when they screw up. What could possibly go wrong? The problem that Aldrich had was people at the time generally weren't big fans of like three main words, and those words were central, authority, and banking. Can't imagine why. So, what does the esteemed and definitely totally 100% above board senator do? What he does is he sends a letter to a whole bunch of his friends that are bankers, and he tells them, "Psst, hey, meet me at the train station in Hoboken." Because as we all know, the Hoboken train station is a prestigious meeting place for government meetings that are definitely not corrupt. But also, I don't want anyone to notice you all meeting for anything official. So come alone and in secret. And, oh, by the way, why don't you disguise yourselves as duck hunters? Yeah, because that's absolutely how a government of, by, and for the people works, right? Through a bunch of rich people traveling in disguise to a secret meeting. He decided it was probably best that people didn't notice a bunch of top-hatted, be-monocled bankers meeting to secretly discuss how they were going to create a policy to have the government force taxpayers to bail them out. Funny. Can't imagine why he was worried. And where, you may ask, do these affluent ersatz antiform attackers trundle off to once they climbed onto Aldrich's secret private train car? Why, to an exclusive private club off the coast of Georgia that's definitely not forebodingly called Jekyll Island.